While the fuselage is drying, I wanted to show you the previous Dancing Wings model that I've started building. I mean, you can see it. It looks sort of finished. It's structurally finished, but it doesn't have the electronics yet. But it was the experience of building this model, which is the Dancing Wings Fokker E 420 millimeter, the small, very small one. They have, I think, 3 different versions of this plane. That that made me think that doing the detail build on the Sopwith pup model, which is what I'm building now, would maybe help people. What I found when I was building this, as I went through, that that first of all, the video instructions that they give, and there's a detailed video on how to build this one, sort of a stop motion video that has most of the steps in it, still makes some sort of assumptions as it gets through, and some things that really not that clear and obvious about exactly what you're supposed to do. So you know, I generally figured things out as I went through, made a couple of mistakes, but really, you know, I got it to this point, and I'm very happy with it. I mean, it looks gorgeous, and I'm hoping that when I get to the point putting the electronics in for the radio control, which you can see the elevator flops around a bit. That's because it's not yet wired up to the struts, to the control rods, etc. It's just something that needs to happen. Well, when that comes in together, I think it's going to be a nice plane, a nice little model, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it flies. There were some things that I learned on the way through building this that led me to the point of saying, okay, maybe people might need some help building the Sopwith pup, and maybe I can help. So that's what I've done. You know, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of things that you can see right now. You know, there were some interesting lessons that we're going to go through about the magnets that are used to, for example, to connect or to sort of clip the cowling in place. And there was, you know, the example I already gave you about the wheels. Well, here's the wheels, and you know, the tires are painted black, but you know, it's a little untidy. It could have been nicer. I found it really difficult to paint the wheels when they were already on the plane. Should have thought ahead. Maybe it might have been useful if the plan said something about that. So that's what I'm trying to do with this video, is to give you some hints about some of the things that I learned building this little guy that might help you building the pup. And the other thing about this one is that the Dancing Wings, you know, detailed stop motion video animation of the assembly of this Fokker E3, well, it was incredibly helpful. I used it throughout the build, stopping at each individual step, rolling back, watching things over and over to see, you know, exactly, oh, how does that piece work? I can't really see it. Zooming in, trying to see exactly what was going on, and it was great. There isn't one for the Sopwith pup, and so hopefully my video gives you maybe even a little bit more information than the Dancing Wings video did for that, and helps with sort of those little join the dots pieces where, you know, for example, some places in the stop motion video you just jump from one thing to the next. As an example, you jump from one place to the next where the cowling in the video is unpainted, and then suddenly it's painted, and there's no mention of anything about the painting. And I'm going to talk about the painting of the cowling in particular when we get to that point in this video. So this is kind of like, this is the goal. This is where we're trying to get to, something similar to this. And some of the lessons that I learned through building this plane, this model, will be some of the things you guys are already getting, and we'll get some more on the build of the Sopwith pup model that we're working through now. Well, that was almost a bit of a disaster, but it's going to be okay. So So what happened is that, as you can see, the whole fuselage is together nicely. The sides E slot together on, so we've got the C and the D added on the top of the B here, with, like I pointed out, the K, L, M, and N inside, and all those tags fit together nicely. And I've got this peg here holding that last piece that I've glued to connect, to basically to sort of hold that together, because those two pieces need to sort of bend in and need to be glued to hold. So that's drying nicely, and that seems all nice and fine. And what I did is it was helpful to get the alignment and to make sure everything worked together, and also to figure out, you know, which way up these pieces need to be. Was to put the sides of the fuselage on, and that all seems perfectly fine until you get to the next step on the plan, which is, this is the part where our head frame. All right, so we've got to join in the head frame into the rest of the model, and then glue it in. So what I'm going to do, I mean, basically I've test fitted this once, but basically what has to happen is this piece slides in here, those two arms slide down onto these two slots in the side. Here, there's one slot on each side, and they slide down in there, and once that goes in, then there's two keys on each side that need to slot back into these two slots, and then this needs to slide down so that the two tags on the end of A slide in and join up into the back end of here. And I think, because I've tried it once, it will work. It'll actually fits almost perfectly. It's actually quite a nice snug fit. And like I said many times before, this stuff is so precise. It really fits together perfectly if you get it right, generally speaking. You know, except, as I've said, with some kind of minor tweaks sometimes required, but in this case, because it's the soft balsa connecting to the hardwood, it actually kind of slips in quite cleanly. So I'm gonna put some glue on the tags. That's a little too much, but that's okay, because no one will see that back there. And a good tight fit for this is such an important piece. I'm also so I've glued on the tags there, and I'm gonna glue across this end of that B piece there, because that's actually going to be where the head frame joins on. And I'll put some glue into those little slots there where that needs to glue in together. So where those little tags need to go in, and I'll just put some glue into the slot where those arms go across there, and that should be enough. I might add some glue along the edges otherwise, but you know, so this is how it goes. This slides in here like this. Line it up with those slots, and slide it down the slots there, so that comes in quite nicely. Then swing this around so that those, and I don't know if you can see, but I'm using my finger underneath to sort of wiggle the soft balsa of that A piece so that it slides into the slots on the end of the head frame there that we already have from before. And again, don't need to force it. If it's in the right place, it'll just slot in. And if it's not in the right place, well, it just won't. And so you just sort of know when you're in the right place, because it just sort of magically just pops pops in, and it's sort of like perfect once you get it exactly in the right place. Just having a little bit of a hard time seeing that. There's that. I know this fits because I did it once. Here we go. So it's just wiggle and slide, wiggle and slide. There we go. So that's just slotted in nicely on there. And then these two pieces are two side slots. Now what I'm trying to do is just to get these two slots here, pieces here, to slot into their little slots on the side there. And again, it's just a question of if you wiggle it right and you slot it in, and it just slides on, and it's perfectly clean. It goes all the way down to the end here. So you know what, I'm going to just pop that off a little bit and pop a little bit of glue in there. And the same thing on this side. Just pop that off, pop a little bit of glue into that piece there, and glue that on. Now what's also very interesting as this piece comes together here is that I think hopefully you can see that there, but the sides themselves, because of their just flat balsa, but this piece is round, so the pieces on the edge of the balsa, they sort of you know, I've glued them and I'm holding them here on this piece here, and they're a tight fit, but they don't join. And so again, it doesn't explain this, and it sort of shows it in the picture. And it seems pretty clear that now's the time when that needs to happen. But actually what needs to happen is that these pieces need to bend around and be glued down all the way around to fit on hard against the edge there. And it doesn't say anything on the other model that I built, the Fokker, when it needed to be bent. And it was an extreme bend, then it would say soak it in water first. Now it hasn't said anything here about soaking in water, so I'm just sort of doing a trial here as I'm doing this. I'm finding that it seems flexible enough that it should be able to get around the corner, and what you'll see is that it actually needs to go around both sides. So it has to, this piece needs to join onto this kind of rib former here, this piece needs to join onto this rib former here at the bottom, and then the same thing needs to happen all the way around on these pieces here. So I'm just looking ahead into the plans about anywhere it says, oh, you need to do this, and all I can see is that after the part where it says do this part, the pictures show that that's already been bent around. You know, I'm looking at the picture on their assemble the fuselage. There's one part that shows fitting all the ribs, we did that. The second part that shows adding the side on, and it does show that it's, you know, separate away from the side of the fuselage there. And it says the next step is actually to cut these pieces out. It doesn't say to cut this piece out, but I'm going to bet that needs to be cut out too at the same time. And then the next piece, the next picture, actually shows these already bent around and glued down. So I'm going to do it in a sort of a step-by-step way. I like what happens with these things is, although you could technically sort of glue it all down right now, it fits with what the picture seems to show, but it also fits with how the wood will work. What you likely want to do is wait for this part to dry first. Once this dries, then you've got sort of like a fixed structure in place, and so when you bend around these pieces, that will they can sort of lock in place. If I try to bend it now, you might find that something else pops out where you don't really want it. So let's get this glued down, follow the instructions, and then assume that there's a picture kind of missing after the part where it says cut these out, where oh no, well, see, I've got another lesson for you here. Talking too much, and I've actually broken off that piece of that C former on the top there, and now I'm going to have to glue that in, glue that back together. Well, that's not good. I think it's okay, but would have been obviously better if I didn't do that. So now I think effectively what that means is I need to do this, glue it down, and then really stop talking for a bit, because then I run the risk that I'm going to break something. I'm talking too much and touching things that I shouldn't be touching. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'll just set that down. I'm going to pop an elastic band around that just to hold it. It's not a very tight hold, I don't want it tight. I do want something there just to hold it in place. So I think that band will be just about perfect. Okay, so there you go. So that's, now we've actually got this is a lot of progress. We've actually got the head frame in place, the basics of the front of the fuselage all glued together, and we just need to wait for that to dry, pop these pieces out, and then once that's done, then we can add the extra piece of forming that piece of fuselage around the head frame, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next part after that, which is basically covering the top and the bottom of the fuselage. And then, you know, technically we could start working on the cowling, because that's kind of an offline activity. I could say, oh, while that's happening, I'm going to work on the cowling, but I'm going to go have something to eat, so I'm going to do that right now. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll be back later.